The shocking truth on the Vancouver Canucks trade deadline is revealed as we got major reports revealing on what the Canucks were offered for Brock Boeser, and a report surfacing that the Vancouver Canucks almost acquired a young center but did not want to give up the assets to get him. We're going to break all this down and more in this episode, so you're not going to want to miss it. But let's just hop straight into this today. Now listen, if you've seen the video yesterday, I did break down Patrik Allvin's comments, but we do see him saying, if I told you what I was offered for Brock Boeser, I think I would have to run out of here because you would not believe me. Now, everyone who's seen the media availability or seen the video yesterday, seen this quote, but we did get a quote from Brock Boeser himself talking on the situation as well. Boeser told me, and this is a quote from Twitter, that he didn't read Allvin's comments about the trade market form and hasn't really processed all of it. Re-emphasized how loyal he has been to the Canucks over the years and was more focused being better in tonight's game. This was yesterday when they played Minnesota. He's expected to speak to Allvin about it in the days ahead, and he's trying not to read into it too much. Still open to an extension. Now, the biggest thing is we know a lot of fans wanted Brock Boeser not to be moved on, but either extended or traded so they don't have the chance and the possibility to lose him for nothing once free agency hits. Looking at this, we do see reports coming from Brandon Batcher saying, per Friedman, the Canucks asked for Boeser was a first-round pick and they didn't get it, so they kept him. This was a little shocking to me that the Vancouver Canucks could not land a first-round pick for a player that scored 40 goals just last season. He's on pace to score roughly around 30 goals once again while losing his line mate and JT Miller having a bit of a down year, and he also was injured for a bit of the season. Listen, Brock Boeser on a one-year deal should at the very least, fetch you a first-round pick, but it seems like Patrik Allvin was not offered exactly what this team wanted. And listen, I want to keep Brock Boeser. I think keeping Brock, especially if he gets an extension, is what the Canucks need to do. But if the Canucks were not getting the assets, you take the chance. In my opinion, hopefully Brock resigns with this team, and if not, then you're kind of screwed once you get to free agency. But it continues on, where we did see Patrik Allvin yesterday say, that's a part of the business and the risk you have to take to be in it. Obviously, this gives us a couple more months to continue to talk and see if we can find a fit that works for both of us. Now, this is talking on the Brock Boeser extension. Once again, the Vancouver Canucks have Brock Boeser for one more year this postseason, pretty much at $6.6 million. The final year of his contract, and the biggest thing is, and everyone already knows this, but he is a UFA, and it seems like the contract talks are very back and forth, but nothing is close or imminent on the extension. We've seen reports coming out that the Brock camp wants a 8-year deal or a 7-year deal at the lowest. We've seen reports that the Vancouver Canucks offered him a 5-year deal. I don't think it comes down to the money side or the AAV, but I think it has the term. The term is what Brock and his camp want him to sign. Someone that has been a little injured throughout his career. And listen, this is not a Brock Boeser video, but someone that has been a tiny bit injured throughout his career, a 40 goal scorer, someone that has been clutch in the playoffs. Yes, he is going to want a long-term deal, and he's not going to want to just not take a long-term deal for the sake of the Canucks, even though he has pretty much said how loyal he's been, but he's focusing and open to an extension. But what's your guys' thoughts on just the Brock Boeser just kind of quotes, where we've seen him talk about how Patrik Allvin said they're still going to work on an extension. They didn't see the offer they wanted. What's your thoughts on this? But let's hop straight into the second topic, where we did see the biggest reason I felt we didn't do any moves here today was there was not a whole lot of market return on our players, unfortunately. Now, looking at some of the players, as I said, Pius Suter was a piece that's a UFA, Derek Forbort, a UFA. Both of these guys were kept by the Canucks. We've seen also reports coming out that Derek Forbort was someone the Canucks were looking to extend. But this is not even the craziest report we've got today, where we did see from Canucks Army, and I'll link this down below the Providence, sorry about that. Carolina, a source said, has been trying to move kothkemi for some time. Obviously, adding a center like Logan Stankoven made kothkemi even more tradable. We know he was offered to the Canucks before and during the JT Miller thing. He was involved in this offer as a first-round pick. The hang-up, as it would seem, may come down to a prospect. Carolina was after one of Vancouver's, even though the Canucks have a mountain of their own, and however it was, it seems like the Canucks did not want to part with him. Now, this could be a bunch of different prospects. If I'm a betting man, I would bet on someone like Jonathan Lekkerimäki that's currently in the lineup. Tom Willender is another possibility, or maybe someone even like Victor Mancini that we've seen make his home debut for the Canucks last night. And listen, I also want to touch on that. Elias Pettersson had an incredible game versus the Minnesota Wild, scoring a goal and looking like his former self. Maybe the media finally being off him about the trademark, and listen, we are part of blame of that as well. But maybe Petey getting back to himself is going to turn the second gear for this Canucks team, especially once they get healthy. But looking at this, we do see that Kotkaniemi was potentially a Vancouver Canuck, and Allvin did not want to meet the criteria to acquire him. They did not want to move one of their prospects. Now, going into Kotkaniemi, listen, he has been on a decline over the past 2 seasons, getting a lot of bottom 6 minutes for the Carolina Hurricanes after being drafted 3rd overall by the Montreal Canadiens. But Kotkaniemi does have some potential. A big body, 6'3", 203. He is a guy that could produce in the playoffs. We've seen him put up 8 points in 19 games with Montreal Canadiens when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. 7 points in 15 games with the Carolina Hurricanes while having a career high of 43 points that year. 18 goals, 25 assists. That was in 22-23. Kotkaniemi does have potential to turn into something. But with his contract, I think Allvin wanted to kind of stay away from this and not risk it by giving up a top prospect for someone that hasn't showed their value yet. Listen, if Kotkaniemi turns around at $4.8 million, that's an absolute steal, especially if this guy can come in and be a second-line center on this Vancouver Canucks team, but that's a big if. $5 million for someone that's going to play in your bottom 6 might be hard to just kind of fit in this roster. Looking at the last 5 games, and I kind of wanted to spin this back to Elias Pettersson. Listen, Kotkaniemi, listen, if they missed him, that's fine. If they want to try to acquire him in the offseason, if they want to take a chance on him, I do think he will fit within the system. Maybe you fill him in as the 3rd-line center or the 2nd-line center, move Hedl to the wing. This offseason is going to be crazy for the Canucks, but I do want to go and look at this team for a little bit going into the rest of the season. As I said, Elias Pettersson has came in and showed his former self last night in a 3-1 win versus the Minnesota Wild. 1 hit, 2 block shots, and the biggest thing is that goal. He's firing all cylinders, moving his feet. He wasn't the best on the faceoff percentage, but overall, Petey had a bounce back game. And this is the team that wants to make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. Am I going to say they're going to do it this year? No. But am I going to say they can't do it? No, I'm also not going to say that. Looking at this Canucks team, they did jump straight into the 2nd wildcard spot. They're going to battle with the Calgary Flames, and it seems like the St. Louis Blues for the rest of the season. They have 62 games, so they do have 2 games in hand to the St. Louis Blues, but it's going to come down to a close race for the Calgary Flames. Once the Canucks get Hughes back, get Demko back, I could see them pushing their way, maybe not fully into a playoff spot, but they will keep a wildcard spot. I could see them battling the Minnesota Wild for the wildcard spot on the first part too. But what's your guys' thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on the Canucks and the possibility that, listen, Brock wants to return, but they didn't get the offer they wanted? What's your thoughts on Kotkaniemi maybe joining the Canucks in the offseason? Listen, I'm not linking them, but from the reports, we did see that there was a chance that Kotkaniemi was going to join the Canucks, but Allvin did not want to give up the prospect. And listen, if it's someone like Lekkerimäki, Willender, I wouldn't either. But what's your guys' thoughts on it? Let's go down and leave a comment below while you're down there. Leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a like. But I've been your host, Mark. Bye, and take care.